In this fifth lesson on beginning guitar, we're going to continue and expand your use of the ghost strum in a way you may not have thought about already. And we're going to introduce something else called a tie. It's a beautiful little musical device that you can use to great effect. And we're going to explain all of that right now. So let's just get right to it. Let's just dive right in, shall we? You'll notice the pattern that you're looking at here in the diagram is one you've already played, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, now we've modified this, as you'll see. If you look at the and of 2, you'll see a swoopy line connecting the and of 2 and the beginning of the third beat. That swoopy line is the tie I mentioned at the beginning. A tie means to carry over, to let it ring out. You'll notice 3 is in parentheses and the downstroke of 3 is ghosted. That's how you let it ring out, by ghosting, not playing, but making the motion, the strings, right? So here's how it sounds. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So I ghosted the first half of the third beat and then came back in on the and of 3. So here's what the progression actually sounds like. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. All right? So pause the video and play through this. Get comfortable making that ghost strum, working the tie. Put it to a metronome when you've got it smoothed out, because timekeeping skills are always something you want to maintain, and to help you smooth it out even more. Then, when you're ready to move forward, press play to restart the video. This next strum pattern is a new one you should know, as are most all the strum patterns we're introducing here, just adding to your strum pattern knowledge, right? So in this one, you'll notice we're just reminding you of the ghost on the end of the beat in the first beat, and then we've kept the tie between the and of 2 and 3 present. So we're just modifying this particular strum pattern that you just did a moment ago, just a tiny bit at the beginning. So here's what it should sound like. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. All right? So, pause the video, practice this, get it down, then, once it's smoothed out, put it to a metronome and smooth it out even more. Nice and consistent tempo. Then, when you're ready to continue, press play. This strum pattern that you're looking at now looks difficult to play, and it does add a little bit of complexity in one respect, but again, we're not violating any rules of the steady state principle. We're just rearranging how the notes are displayed so that we can avoid using too many ties. We've got one tie in here between the and of 2 and 3. Well, instead of employing a tie earlier on, we just rearrange how to write it out so that it's a nice, clean chart. So let me show you the strum patterns. Pretty straightforward. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 that's it. All right? So if you want to pause and practice that, go ahead. Take advantage of the technology. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to play through the progression to give you the idea of what you're striving for. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. All right, your turn now. Pause the video, get the strum pattern down, get the progression down, then put it to a metronome to help you smooth it out even more. Then, when you're ready to continue, press play and we'll keep on going. In this strum pattern, I want to draw your attention to the first note, the quarter note. You'll notice there's a little dot just to the right of the quarter note. Well, that dot is there deliberately because it has time value. All right, so there's this thing called the rule of the dot. The rule of the dot is this. The value of the dot is equal to half of the value of the note to which it's attached. What that means is the quarter note is equal to 2/8 notes, 1/8 plus 1/8. That equals a quarter, just like in fractions, right? So, since it's equal to 2/8 notes, the dot time value is 1/8. Therefore, the duration of that first note that you strum is, as you can see up above in the count, 1 and 2. We're borrowing the first half of the second beat and carrying that first strum over for 1 and 2. Then we come back in on the and of 2. There's a tie there, so we ghost 3 and come back in on the and of 3 to finish the strum pattern. Let me demonstrate. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just like that. So if you need to pause and go over that and practice it yourself, go ahead, do just that. Let me play the progression so you can hear what you're going for. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. So, your turn now. Pause the video. Go over this. Be careful. Remember the rule of the dot. The dot is equal in value to half of the value of the note it's attached to. In this case, it's attached to a quarter note, so its value is 1/8 in duration. All right? Practice the progression, get it smoothed out, put it to a metronome. After you've done that for a few minutes, go ahead and restart the video. For this progression, I'm introducing a couple of elements. One is sort of familiar, but the other is not familiar at all. The familiar is you'll see the second beat is a quarter note, and we have a tie going to the first half of the third beat. And you'll notice when you look at the count, 2 and 3, that is held over for 1.5 beats, just like in the previous progression with the dotted quarter note. Here, we're using a tie because of the way the note arrangement occurs. Anyway, the other thing I want you to notice is on the end of 3, you've got the D chord taking place. So your chord change is happening on the end of the beat, on an upstroke, not a downstroke. Let me demonstrate the progression and all the stuff we just talked about. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now it's really cool when you start changing chords on the offbeat, on the end of the beat. It creates a very different feel, and that's a cool thing. All right, so pause the video, rewind if you need to listen to the explanation again, and then pause and work through the progression and the chord changes. Now I want to point out that you have something in common between the E and the D, and that's your first finger. It stays on the 3rd string. It just moves from the 1st fret on the E to the 2nd fret on the D. Like that. So you don't need to remove it. Leave it there, relax it a little bit so that you can move it. So practice that maneuver too, and that will help the change to the D on the end of 3 a little bit easier. All right? So when you're ready to keep going, go ahead and restart the video. Before we get to the final progression, I want to introduce you to a few chords. Let's start with an A. Now I want you to play an A. Right? Now, the first chord is an A sus4. So what I want you to do is move this finger up 1 fret. And you notice I'm just kind of laying it down so that I can get it. Right? And you'll notice I'm also kind of craning in there like that. Don't worry about that. I mean, if you want to get it, you have to kind of stand this finger up and you'll get it. But don't worry if that's not happening. That's the important note. Then back to the A. Now you'll notice the next chord is an A sus2. Lift your 4th finger off and let the 2nd string ring. And that's an A suspended 2. You already know the E sus4, so here's the A sus4 and the A sus2. The 3rd chord there is a D sus2, so play a D. You know the D sus4 by adding your little finger, right? Go back to the D. Now lift your 2nd finger off and let the high E ring out. Pretty cool, huh? So practice these for a few minutes. Pause the video and get comfortable with these chords, all right? And then when you're ready to continue, go ahead and press play. I want to introduce you to 3/4 time. So instead of 4 beats per measure, there's just 3 beats per measure. The strum pattern is really simple. There's only one ghost strum on the end of 1, right? So you just go 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and. That's it. Now, I have 2 progressions technically, one in D, one in A. Let's start with the D progression. You just learned the D sus2 where you lift your 2nd finger off, right? So we're going to start with D, D sus2, D sus4, then D. So you'll go 1, 2, and 3, and 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 1. cool, huh? Now, this creates motion within the strumming of a chord. And it helps to add that kind of implied complexity behind any singing or any melody playing by a solo instrument. And you have to learn how to use it in such a way as to complement what the soloist, even the singer, is playing or singing. Now, the alternate chords, we can do this in the key of A, very similarly. Start with your A, go to your A sus2, A sus4, and then back to A. Same strum. 1, 2, and 3, and 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 1. All right? Pause the video, practice both these progressions, and really get them flowing, which is why you use a metronome. That helps you to get the flow going because it helps you keep good time. All right? Then, when you're ready to continue, you know what to do next. Let's add the G string to our fretboard knowledge now. G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. Descending, G, G flat, F, E, E flat, D, D flat, C, B, B flat, A flat, G. Now the object is to go all four strings, right? Up and back. So a variation on this that you can do is ascend on the low E string up to E, hop over to the A and do the descending. Up on the D and then down on the G. Then flip it. Do down on the E, up on the A, down on the D, up on the G. That way you're covering all the bases. All right? So pause and practice this for a little while. And then when you've done that, press play. All right, that was a pretty dense lesson for you there. A lot going on here. The rule of the dot and the tie. Very important elements for you to understand and know how to use in music. And when you see them in written music, you'll recognize them for what they are and know what to do. And that's the whole idea, right? So, thank you again for letting me be your teacher. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. All right? See you then.